104.5 The Team, your home for New York Jets football. Proud to be joined by the voice of the Jets right now, Bob Wischusen. So let's rip the Band-Aid off. Is this a situation where Todd Bowles has lost this team and he needs to go?
I don't know that. I think that based on winning 10 games his first year, he deserves more than one bad season to try and right the ship. I think there are a lot of guys in that locker room that really respect him. And I also think that he deserves the right to analyze a roster and determine which guys are his kind of guys on this team. I think a lot of the accountability inside the locker room ought to fall on the players. These guys are professionals. It's not junior high or high school football where you should have an adult looking over your shoulder 24/7 basically telling you how to act. You ought to know how to act.
Right.
And so, I would think that he deserves, based on the fact that, he won 10 games his first season, and, this is only their third draft where he's going to have a chance to influence the kind of guys he wants in his locker room, that, he should have the right to make some of those decisions.
Very cool. So, we've got fans calling, and they're calling for his head, McCagnon's head. Chan Gailey has basically said there's a chance he'll walk away. Is that going to satiate the fans who are, blood hungry all of a sudden?
I don't know. I'm sure each individual fan has his own individual desires, but the easiest thing for fans always at any time is to just chop everybody's head off that's in a position of authority and act like none of this falls on the players. Every single time a coach gets fired, it also seems to be followed by a major roster overhaul, as if those doing the firing are saying the coach has to go, because obviously this is on the coach, but then 2 months after the coach is fired, they change out half the team,
right,
seemingly admitting that this wasn't on the coach, that we have to change the players, because the players obviously are not getting the job done. So, do I think there will be changes to the coaching staff? Yes, and there always are. I don't think that the head coach should go. My personal opinion, winning 10 games your first year should buy you more than one additional year. But I also think that it's somewhat hypocritical, and I think fans are at the head of the list, to scream and yell for the coach's head, and then also scream and yell that you want the players to be changed. Well, which is it? Either the coach isn't doing a good job of coaching a really good team, or the team isn't really good, and you have to change the players so the coach has a chance to coach a really good team. So, I would think there would be more roster changes than coaching changes, but, if you win 4 or 5 games in an NFL season, never does that entire operation get brought back intact. So I know there will be changes. I'll be curious as anyone to see what they are.
Voice of the Jets, Bob Wischusen, joining us here on Levack and Gons 104.5 The Team. And you can hear Bob Christmas Eve, 1 o'clock, right here on 104.5 The Team as the Jets take on the Patriots. Bob, when you look at Bryce Petty, only 2 games to go left in the regular season, is that going to be enough time for him to possibly win the starting job in 2017?
Well, I think for 2 reasons he can. Number one, if he were to at least show them that there's a foundation for success there, then he would have the right, I would say, to go into an off season where he would spend the entire winter and spring and summer preparing to be the starter, rather than all of those first-team reps going to other players that are ahead of him on the depth chart. He's never been able to take more than the third-string reps, much less the second-string reps. So obviously giving him an entire spring and summer where he's practicing as the first-team quarterback would then give him a fighting chance going into next year to prove that he is a first-team player. I think the other thing that works in his favor is that this crop of quarterbacks in the draft and available in free agency, there isn't one guy in either category that's a no-brainer for the Jets to bring in to take his place. Either the veterans that are available in free agency are injury-prone and towards the end of their careers. The younger players that are available are also unproven backup players. There really isn't a franchise quarterback that's obvious in the draft. So, I would think that he would probably go into the offseason at worst, if they're not bringing in additional guys, in a battle with Christian Hackenberg to see which guy ought to be the starter next year. But, I have a hard time believing that they can have a real feel and final judgment on Bryce Petty with where he's been on the depth chart to this point. He's never even been given a significant number of backup reps, even in practice.
What's the latest word on Christian Hackenberg? Is he progressing as they hope?
Well, we don't get to watch practice, so we can only go by what they say. Those who I have talked to said that they think he's taken major strides since he first arrived back in the spring. But again, he's only taking, second and third string reps at this point. So, and has only really played significant snaps in one preseason game this past year. So, so much of this is, kept obviously hidden from the media and the public because you're not allowed to practice. It's not like we're in the meeting rooms.
Right.
You kind of have to take their word for it. But the one thing they've done with Hackenberg is stuck to their guns, that this is a redshirt year for him. And I could see if Petty is banged up this weekend, maybe they would dress him as a third quarterback, because if Petty can't go, or if they're really worried that he's going to go out there, take one hit and be out, well, then Ryan Fitzpatrick would be the only healthy quarterback they'd have available. You might dress a third quarterback just to make sure you're not left without one if Fitzpatrick got hurt. But I don't think that the plan is for him to play for the rest of this season. So, Petty's supposed to get the last two games. So, they've really stuck to their plan with him, that this is a redshirt year. He's going to sit, he's going to learn, and then we'll see what he has going into next season.
Voice of the Jets, Bob Wischusen with us right now, 104.5 The Team. All right.
After everything that's happened now within this last week involving Sheldon Richardson, is it even possible we see Sheldon Richardson back as a New York Jet in 2017?
Well, that's a hard one because you don't know what would be available to them via trade. I mean, he does have another year left where they control his salary, and I guess theoretically 2 or 3 years left where they control his salary, because you could franchise him 2 years from now. I mean, he still has a year left on his contract. Normally, because a team could trade for him and still have him as a relatively low-cost player, and then have the option to either sign him or franchise him, that would make a player a little more, desirable and garner you a higher draft choice. On the flip side, with, the baggage that he now has as part of his resume, how much could they get? You only need one team out there to overpay for a player to make it worth trading him.
Right.
But I don't even know if Mike McCagnon right now has a good feel for what Sheldon Richardson would get him in the offseason. And based on that, whether trading him is the move or continually trying to coach him is the move. He's a gifted player. He's a player that could be an impact player in the right system, motivated the right way. But, at this level, even the most gifted players only get a certain number of chances before a team finally washes their hands and moves on and says, this is pro football. Our livelihood is riding on whether or not you act like a professional yourself or not. So I need to bring someone in here that I know will be a pro. And I could see them taking that tact. That's one of their biggest off-season question marks. And I think a lot of that is not even in their control because, they can't control what other teams will offer for Sheldon Richardson. If they get an offer that they think is worth it, then I could absolutely see them, moving on. And maybe they will get an offer from a team that feels like they can coach him.
Bob Wischusen with us. You'll hear him this Saturday right here on 104.5 The Team as the Jets take on the Patriots in Foxborough. Jets are, some places have them as much as a 16.5-point underdog. Bob, when you look at this game, how do the Jets pull this upset? Because, there's always a way. They don't say any given Sunday or any given Saturday in this case for no reason at all.
Well, they have to flip what has been their, unfortunate set of circumstances that has gotten to this record in the first place, and that is number one, turnovers. They have been plus in all their wins. They've been even or minus in all their losses. And they need to turn over the Patriots, and that, is a very, very difficult thing to do. That is rip the ball out because Tom Brady's not going to throw interceptions. And they also have to avoid giving up big plays over